range of an intermediate-range ballistic missile. The Polaris was a two-stage solid-fuel nuclear-armed ballistic missile about 20 feet in length, with a range of 1,000 nautical miles. On July the 20th, 30 miles off Cape Canaveral, the George Washington submerged 50 to 60 feet below the surface and fired the first nuclear missiles from a submarine. With submarines able to carry nuclear weapons to any ocean on the planet, the dynamics of the Cold War changed.
The Navy's newest nuclear submarine, the Thresher, is launched at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. The 278-foot craft is the first of a new class of attack subs designed to operate deeper and more silently than previous undersea craft. The Thresher will have a crew of 8 officers and 80 enlisted men. She gets a bow first launching, the first in 40 years, with the christening done by Mrs. Frederick B. Warder, wife of the 8th Naval District Commandant. The Thresher's novel moving torpedo tubes mounted amidships necessitate the bow first launching. They'll make the craft one of the most effective fighters in the Navy's undersea fleet.
On the 9th of July 1960, the first Thresher-class submarine was launched at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, joining the growing ranks of U.S. nuclear-powered subs. The USS Thresher was a big step forward for naval technology. She carried the first computerized fire control system in a submarine and had an unparalleled sonar range. But despite her advanced design, the Thresher and all 129 crew were lost at sea off the Cape Cod coast on April 10, 1963, when the submarine failed to surface following deep-sea exercises. The last thing heard by sonar operators on the submarine rescue ship Skylark, which was shadowing the sub, was the sound of air rushing into an air tank. A massive underwater search located the remains of the Thresher on the seabed, about 8,400 feet below the surface. The Navy concluded that the failure of a piping joint in a seawater system in the engine room allowed a burst of water to short out electronics and cause an automatic shutdown of the nuclear reactor. Without nuclear power, the sub dropped to the ocean depths, where it was flattened by water pressure. According to one photographer who saw the wreckage, the Thresher looked as if it had literally been shredded, crushed by some giant unseen hand. Across the Atlantic, the British were forging ahead with their own atomic submarine program. The 7th HMS Dreadnought became the nation's first nuclear-powered submarine. It was joined by the Valiant in 1966, the first fully British nuclear fleet submarine. Interviewed at the Valiant's keel-laying ceremony in 1962, its captain said the crew was highly specialized.
They're all volunteers and they've all been specially selected because the training for the submarine is a much higher standard, because everyone must know exactly what is happening and also know a great number of details about the power plant itself to ensure its absolute safety under all conditions.
What sort of amenities will they have?
Well, for instance, there are cinemas in each of the messes. We hope to carry a large stock of tape recordings for relaying, say, BBC-reported programs, a large library, and we'll carry a number of games of various types that people can play in their messes.
Proudly afloat for all to see at Barrow-in-Furness was Dreadnought, the Royal Navy's first nuclear-powered submarine built by Vickers Armstrong at a...
HMS Dreadnought and Valiant were key weapons in Britain's Cold War nuclear deterrence strategy. The Dreadnought was modelled on the US submarine design for the USS Albacore. It included a distinctive whale-shaped casing and a fin-shaped conning tower to reduce drag. 113 men crewed the vessel, and great effort was taken to build comfortable quarters because of the amount of time the nuclear-powered submarine would be spending underwater. The Dreadnought spent nearly 20 years in service for the British Navy, including a secret mission during the Falklands War. In 1971, she travelled 1,500 miles under the polar ice cap to become the first British submarine to surface at the North Pole. In the years since nuclear submarines emerged on the scene, safety systems have been upgraded significantly. But as the tragedy of the Kursk demonstrated, the possibility of disaster remains ever present. On August the 12th, 2000, K-141 Kursk disappeared in the Barents Sea with 118 men on board. Later investigations showed that a number of the men survived the initial explosion that sank the craft into the mud at the bottom of the sea, and later died of suffocation. The Oscar II-class nuclear missile submarine was a showpiece of the Russian Navy and the largest attack submarine ever built. The Russians insisted they did not need international help and could rescue the occupants of the stricken sub by themselves. However, the rescue attempts ended in failure. Investigations determined that the most likely cause of the disaster was a leak of hydrogen peroxide in the forward torpedo room that caused a warhead to detonate, leading to a chain reaction of other explosions. 2 Dutch salvage companies were hired to retrieve the wreckage, a massive undertaking given that the submarine was resting 354 feet below the waves and weighed almost 24,000 tons underwater. The retrieval team used a giant cutting chain to sever the front section and lift the bow first. The rest of the submarine was retrieved later using heavy-duty lifting cables, which were anchored into the sub through holes drilled by divers and securely plugged. The Kursk was hauled onto pontoons and transferred to dry dock for examination. Relatives of the dead sailors felt the situation was handled badly by a top brass reeling from the scale of the catastrophe. On the 5th anniversary of the disaster, several attended a somber ceremony at the Kursk Memorial in Moscow. A Naval Guard of Honor laid a wreath at the foot of the monument to remember those who lost their lives. Although there is now an official explanation for the explosion on board the Kursk, there is still speculation in Russian media and countless conspiracy theories. Navy top brass took 2 days to reveal a malfunction on board the Kursk, and then delivered a rash of contradictory statements. Officials alluded to a collision with a NATO vessel. They said the crew was tapping out SOS messages on the hull. Then they announced that the crew had died minutes after the blasts, rendering the Navy's delayed, botched rescue effort pointless. Sofia Leonova, whose son Dmitry died on the Kursk, said she was still upset at the way officials informed her and other families of the accident.
I think they did everything they could, but couldn't save the sailors. But they should have told us immediately and should not have prolonged the wait. The accident happened on August 12th, and only on August 24th were we told all of them had died. Then we wouldn't have had such a long period of tension and worry.
In North Korea, the government is alleging that a mini-sub it has put on display in Pyongyang is an unmanned American spy sub it captured off the North Korean coast in 2004. Large submarines are also still a key component of the US Strategic Defense Plan, but their focus has been overhauled in priorities. During the Cold War, the USS Florida prowled the oceans, equipped with Trident nuclear missiles, ready to carry out an attack at a moment's notice. In 2006, the 18,000-ton sub was converted from a ballistic missile-capable submarine to a guided missile submarine, making her one of the US Navy's most advanced ships. One of the Ohio-class submarines, the Florida is now capable of launching up to 154 Tomahawk missiles. The vessel measures 560 feet and has a cruising speed of 20 knots. It's also equipped with 2 lockout chambers that can rapidly deploy a team of up to 66 sea, air, and land special forces. Navy SEALs can be secretly dispatched to volatile regions anywhere in the world. Inside, the submarine is a hub of activity, as its 135 crew go about their daily tasks.
Dive! Dive!
Despite the cramped conditions, everything runs smoothly. The submarine's captain, Bill Traub, all responsibility for the vessel.
The ship is very special because it's got the latest technology. It's got an incredible ability to communicate even when the ship is submerged, much more so than other submarines. In the conversion process, the ship was converted to be a very good platform for special operations forces and for land strike with conventional missiles.
Captain Traub says the Navy